it's going to be really interesting to see how much Rocco can juggle, and whether in the modern era players will balk at not having an established role.
It is going to be interesting, and we'll see how that plays out. So far, what seems to leap out at us is if Taylor Rogers is going to be this good against both right-handers and left-handers, then a whole world opens up for Rocco Baldelli, because at the end of the game, it looks like he likes Blake Parker as the go-to closer. But in the meantime, if he's used him a couple of times in a row, like he now has, the last two games, and Parker's saved both games, then he can go to Taylor Rogers to close. He can go to Trevor May. He can go to either one of those guys to set up Blake Parker. He can use Blake Parker in the seventh if he wants. If he feels like there's a matchup that he needs to win the game right here, get this guy out. He likes Parker the best, and then close with Rogers and Trevor May. I mean, there are lots of ways you can go when you have three guys that have late inning stuff, and it looks like those three guys do. And getting there is pretty good too with Hildenberger and Mejia and some of those guys. So I think it's going to be interesting to see how it plays out, and I actually think that Taylor Rogers might be the key to it all.
Yeah, and really interesting. I mentioned this in one of my preview columns for the season. For all the good young players, all the talented young players they brought up and hoped would become something, and still may become something. It's really interesting that Barrios, Rosario, and Taylor Rogers are probably the most established of those young players. Yeah,
it really is, and it's what we said as kind of a preview. There are things that need to happen from a just be who you are standpoint, and so I'm talking about Rosario continuing to be what he's done the last 2 years, and Cruz to do that, to be who he is, and Barrios to be who he looks like he's going to be. But then the second level are the other guys that the Polanco, Buxton, Kepler, Taylor Rogers, are those guys gonna emerge, ascend, to greater heights where we certainly think they have the ability. If they do, if the first level happens, the guys that just are the veterans, they do what they do, and those four guys in particular, Polanco, Buxton, Kepler, Taylor Rogers, let's call it, make that big emergence. It's going to be really good this year.
Thanks to Tony Hoaglund, your State Farm agent in Champlin, Hoaglund, providing insurance and financial services, works out of Champlin, but can work with you anywhere.
Hey, Minnesota sports fans. This is your local State Farm agent, Tony Hoaglund. I need you all to ask yourselves this question. If you're in an at-fault car accident and you are sued for $700,000, how much of that $700,000 will my current insurance company pay? If you are unsure or can't answer all $700,000, you need to give us a call. State Farm has been number one in car insurance since World War II and number one in homeowners insurance since 1964. For a no-obligation review of your current policies, call us at 763-421-4900 or check out our website at www.champlininsurance.com.
All right, a few more topics I want to get to, Roy. We're going to keep this show tight. Rosario's base running, the Red Sox, and Bryce Harper. To start with Rosario, I just love watching this guy play. I love the fact that he could have just cruised into third while running on a bloop single to left center, and he looks over his right shoulder, sees for himself that the body language of the left fielder and the shortstop was like, okay, blase, and he says, I can score on this. And he not only scores, he scores easily.
It was really fun to watch. He's done that a number of times as we've seen. Guys just don't do that these days, and so to see somebody that outside the box is really fun. That look over the right shoulder reminded me of Willie Mays. Willie Mays never used a base coach in his life. He always made his own decisions. He was always looking around, looking back, and making his own decisions. And he was never wrong. I mean, ever. He never got thrown out. I mean, when he went for the extra base or two, he made it. And Rosario has reminded me a little bit of that with his willingness to do that and his preparation. I mean, you have to remember that when that play was made when he was running hard right off of first base immediately on that little bloop, and he had it in his mind, either in the back of his mind or further forward than that. We're just going to wait and see what happens, because who says I can't score from here? And of course he was running on the pitch, and so that got him started. But you're right, he didn't cruise into third. He had every intention when he realized where he was when the ball was contacted, where he was as close as he was to second base. He had it in his mind right there before he ever hit second and turned for third. So that's awfully fun.
The speed aside, just the best technical base runners I think I ever covered on a daily basis were Puckett, Molitor, and Maurer, with Molitor being the best of them because he could really steal a lot of bases as well as take the extra base. I think I've told you before, I was covering a late season Twins game, like 98 or something. The game meant nothing. The Orioles are in the race, so it meant something. The Orioles didn't mean much to the Twins. And, 0-0 late in the game, might have been the top of the eighth or top of the ninth. A pitch ticks off the bottom of the catcher's mitt for the Orioles. Molitor's on third base, and Molitor immediately takes off and scores without a play, because he just immediately, first of all, he was prepared to go. Like you talk about Rosario, you have to be ready. You can't just decide then. And then he scored because he realized that by the time the catcher looked around and located that the ball was actually between his feet, he could beat it. And that I love that part of the game.
Yeah, it really is fun, and it's all about preparation and confidence. Preparation and courage, being willing to do it, and willing, not wanting to be wrong, but being willing to be wrong, and then making it so that you're not wrong. And you're right about Joe Mauer. Joe Mauer was a terrific base runner. The thing about you just don't realize a lot of guys that are good base runners because they're not blinding fast, like as you were alluding to. Per speed, per miles per hour, Joe is as good a base runner, I think, as anybody.
Yeah, absolutely. He just had great awareness, great instincts, great anticipation, all those things you have to have. All right, let's wrap up with a couple of national topics, one of which is going to impact the Twins this weekend. Bryce Harper and the Red Sox. Bryce Harper, he goes back to Washington, he gets booed like crazy. You've been a player, you've changed teams, you've asked for trades, you've been, you were related to a great manager in Gene Mauch, you're an analyst now, you've seen the game from all kinds of different angles. Do you think fans should be offended or boo when a player leaves for a large contract?
No, obviously not. But I also get it. Part of being a fan, fans pay their money, and they're going to go out and cheer and boo. That's just what that's part of the experience. It's like having a hot dog. When you go to the ballpark, and it's been this way forever. When a fan walks in the stadium, they're going to get a hot dog and a beer, and they're going to cheer and boo depending on what happens. And when one of your guys leaves and goes to a hated rival in the same division, then you're going to be affronted and hurt, and so you're going to let them hear about that. Do I think they should? No. Do I understand it? Well, absolutely. That's part of being a fan. It affects players in different ways, and I think Bryce Harper is the type of player that revels in this kind of stuff. It probably will make him have, not make him, but will contribute to his having a big year this year, because he's loved in Philadelphia and hated in Washington. They're going to play 13 games, down there during the course of the season, and it's probably a great incentive, for him. From a Twins standpoint, I have to say though that since we're talking about playing Bryce Harper and the Phillies, the biggest issue that going on with the interleague play for the Twins this year is that their best hitter, arguably, is Nelson Cruz. Not maybe the best hitter, but the most important guy in the lineup for me is Nelson Cruz, and you got to make a decision about whether you play Nelson on defense, or you're with your lineup. You take Nelson Cruz out of that lineup looks different, and will play different, and will play differently. And this is a big deal. I mean, it's a really, really big deal. When your best hitter is your DH, interleague play really sucks. And so I just think that, let's not. The Phillies are really good. The Mets are really good. For different reasons. The Phillies can pound the ball and they pitch okay. The Mets can throw an 0 for 12 at you really, really quickly with that staff that they have. So this is going to be a tough next 5 games. The Philly series and the 2 games in New York against the Mets. They're good teams, and your best or most significant spot in the lineup may or may not be playing. And if he does play, he'll be playing defense, which takes some defense away from you too. So this is a big deal. This will be a tough interleague season for the Twins.
Yeah, it's a great point. And I guess what you could do is play, Kepler in center and Cruz in right if you think you're facing, a tough righty, and you could play Buxton next to Cruz if you're facing a tough lefty or any lefty. I guess you could do it that way. I mean, you're right. I mean, as important as Buxton and Kepler are, you just can't, especially with Sano out, you can't not have Cruz in the lineup.
Having that big bat hitting third or fourth, and I love the fact that he's hitting third and Rosario's hitting fourth. It gets Cruz up right away in the first inning and allows him to have arguably the Twins' best hitter, at least after Cruz, Eddie Rosario, protecting Cruz a little bit. So, I mean, it's just so important. He is so important to the team. What they've been missing for longest time is a thumper DH, because in the American League, it's you just can't. I don't think you can compete with all the good teams, because their DHs are all thumpers, and if you don't have big offense out of your DH, you're behind. They address that. They got a veteran hitter that could be a rock in the middle of the rest of the lineup for these young guys. I mean, all these things we talked about, how good I thought it was that they got Nelson Cruz. But all that's by the wayside when they go to Philadelphia and New York and places they're going to go.
Last topic, thanks to Barry Coffey, Bitesquad.com, and Tony Hoaglund, your State Farm agent, Champlin, Hoaglund. The Red Sox get off to a slow start, and we have the eternal April debate. Half the people saying long season, nothing matters yet, and the other half saying it's the Red Sox. If they're bad, if they have one bad week, we have to panic. Where do you stand on that?
Well, I saw an interesting statistic. No World Series winner has ever started 2-6 or what the next year or whatever they are. I look at the lineup. And I kind of scoff at we're worried about the Red Sox. Mookie Betts is going to do what Mookie does. J.D. Martinez is going to do that. Xander Bogaerts. I mean, those guys are veteran guys. We know what they're going to do. Last year they all had close to career years at the same time, which is what happens when you win the World Series. I mean, that's how it works. Is you have 4 or 5 or even 6 guys all playing at the top end of their range. But they have a range, and it's all good, low to high. It's all good. So those guys will start scoring a bunch of runs, like they have. The question really becomes, and I believe that Sale and Price and Porcello and all those guys, will pitch the way they normally pitch too. So I mean, David Price might be a question. Porcello might be a question, but I kind of doubt it. I kind of think that they're going to play. They're going to play the way they're supposed to play. By the time the season's over, that's why they call it averages. Earned run averages and batting averages. I mean, veteran guys are going to do what they do over the course of the season.
Good stuff from Roy. Thanks to everybody who listens. We'll be back next week. And check out TalkNorth.com for all your other shows and all your other sports.
Yeah, oh yeah, what condition, my condition.